Alright, yo. What's good? B-Dog. Rev here. I'm going to try to do this. It's still sprinkling, but I think it's just going to make it more interesting. So, essentially what this is going to be about is I'm going to revisit some recordings that I had on some intellectual discussions, mainly Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, and I'm going to listen to them and they're going to prompt me, and then we're going to carry this out. We'll see how far we go. We did about 8 yesterday, accumulated about an hour and a half. So, all right, so we're starting with the concept of everyone is a philosopher, right? So I was talking about that, and I was like, yeah, everyone might be their own philosopher, but it doesn't mean everyone is a good philosopher. There's probably a lot of people who are shitty philosophers. And that was kind of stemmed from it's so powerful, beautiful, audacious, and dangerous to live in an alternative way, right? So, like, as I was listening, I was like, what is the value of being clean, of keeping yourself clean? I believe that so much of what people are engaged in is unclean, and that's why they're unhealthy, and that's why they're also unhealthy to be around, because they're operating on a lower frequency. So that drives a lot, that kind of philosophy, right? That drives a lot of my decisions on a daily basis, and also long-term decisions, because I don't want to get corrupted by what man engages him and her and themselves in. So I think it's really, you got to be really, really cautious to not get corrupted, not get dirtied, not get muddied, not get contaminated, not get in the trap of the matrix. Like, for example, I got an offer to do advertising for a car dealership, because I'm a public figure in this area, and I perform in public in a very alternative way, a very controversial way at times, a very confrontational way at times, just because I'm tapping into, I listened to the first podcast. It's on Spotify. Because I'm tapping into the breakage, the disintegration to a degree, like the attempt to disintegrate, to challenge, to two beautiful cardinals are flying over there, females, of what's accepted, of what's, you know, even just the way that I'm fucking like presented. Like, for me, this is normal. It's normal for me, but for other people in the matrix, it's not. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone thinks they're a philosopher, but I don't think that I think that they're a lot of the majority of low frequency, plebeian, decadent individuals that are caught in the matrix and are suffering, but they're so like used to it that they just like, it's like they're almost numb to it, but it's having a debilitating effect on their being and their body and their brain. So, like I always say, or at least I've recently said a lot, that there is so much truth in the body. Like, you look at someone, look at their eyes, look at their facial structure, their wrinkles, their gait, how they carry themselves, how they dress, and you already know they're in the matrix if it's like they dress like a dude, like another dude, like right right nearby, or like that's like, oh yeah, that's how a dad dresses, or whatever. That's how a dad walks. Like, you know, when you see older folks, with all due respect, you see older folks that, you know, conduct themselves in a certain way. You see people who drive similar cars. Like you see, like I see this Subaru Outback all the time because I know someone who drives one that's a light blue color, and I just notice it all the time, and it's like right there, right? Like Subaru Outback and Nissan Rogue, like they're mid-level cars, right? Like over here we've got 2 Jeeps and a Nissan Rogue. See, that's fucking hilarious. And they're neighbors. You know what I mean? So like, pay attention to, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but like, I pay attention to like how people carry themselves, their bodies, their beings, their eyes. How do I feel around someone? What kind of energy does someone give you? Because we emanate energy in like an auric level, an egg shaped around our body, like 5 to 8 feet, or 3 to 5 feet, something like that, right? So it's a lot to digest, a lot to think about. All right, so that's perfect. So it's like when people are operating on a level of an NPC, a non-playable character, which means they're completely caught in the matrix, right? That's like popular opinion. That's like you're just an extra in the movie. Like, who would want to be an extra? Wouldn't everyone want to be a main character? So it's like there's a level of like hiding, of blending in, and it's like the herd operates at a level that it's a level of quantity over quality. So what I'm getting at is that when you are not part of the matrix, when you are not part of the herd, when you are not part of the mass of people that all operate as NPCs, this would make you an individual. It would make you an outcast. It would make you an outlier. It would make you even a black sheep. Okay, it would make you stick out like a sore thumb. So this is again very risque. It requires a level of fortitude unlike the other alternative. And then when you're an individual, you can develop yourself as an individual. Then you can become a godlike figure, which is what you were destined to be. And this way you break out of the programming, you create your own coding, and you become godlike. You become godly. You become what Nietzsche talks about as an Ubermensch. If you know what the fuck it is, look it up. It's a Superman. That's where we get the concept Superman, superhero. It comes from Nietzsche and maybe some other places, but it really comes from Nietzsche. So, pause. Like, for example, like that's a school bus, okay? It's part of the way to develop society to be NPCs. You don't want to be a fucking NPC. No one wants to be an NPC, except people that actually do it and are NPCs. But anyone in their right mind that's not borderline delusional from the matrix, from the programming, would never opt to be an NPC. If they were giving consent, they knew exactly what they were getting into and they knew how to stay out of it and get out of it. And the thing that makes it so audacious at the same time is that when you're out of the matrix, people recognize it who are in it more than anyone else. Just like I would recognize someone else who's not part of the matrix by the way they think, the way they carry themselves, the way they operate, the way they do business, by their energy. So when you're emanating so much light from your abyss, from where you're at, there's a high level of envy, whether it's conscious in them or not. It's there because you can sense it, you can feel it, you can feel the negative frequency being shot at you, being spewed at you, being directed, whether they can help it or not, right? So, like, and I think NPCs really they try to fool people in general. I don't know who they're trying to fool, but like, maybe that it's like good, or that it's like it's powerful to be a decadent, to be part of the herd. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that I know, I might even follow them, they follow me. Like, we're friendly, but there ain't no like we're not in the same category. Like, there's a reason that, you know, they're not like gloating over all my shit. Like, for example, I just made a post regarding the advertising that I might be doing, which I don't know if I'm gonna do it, because it's part of like, it's part of the fucking like the matrix in a way, right? So whatever that is, I need to stay clean. I need to stay fucking clean, bro. Like, I can't get contaminated. That's the worst thing I could do, is dirty myself, you know? So yes. So okay, so if you are already on the path, congrats. But if you're going to be a non-NPC, so you're not going to be part of the matrix, you're not going to be part of the crowd, you're not just going to do what everyone else does, go to college, get a 9 to 5, you can do that in a million different ways. You could create your own destiny, your own fate, your own reality, creating your own coding, right? If you are going to be an individual, if you're going to be a fucking god, then you are automatically a leader. You don't need to have a bunch of followers, social media or otherwise. You need to be a fucking leader, because when you walk around, like when I'm walking around these areas and all these cars are driving by, they're all looking at me. We're all fucking just... So I'm already at an ability where I'm challenging people's mindsets. I'm challenging people's operant conditioning in things, and it's extremely like bro, even me walking around with a fucking camera in the suburbs videotaping myself, it's like people are like, that just like, no one does that. No one fucking does that. When I go on and perform, I record myself at times. I go live on Instagram. I perform. Like, no one does this shit. So it's like, how can you be an individual and not be part of the matrix? This is my opinion on this shit. Like, do your own shit. But you're gonna need to have a fucking ball sack. You're gonna need to have some gall to be able to fucking do that. You know? So yes. My suggestion for anyone is don't be part of the fucking matrix. You don't want to be part of the matrix, okay? You could just be a fucking wandering nomad, or you could create your own business, anything in between. But don't be doing what the flock of sheep are doing, okay? And therefore, you're automatically just gonna be a leader. you're gonna stand out. People are gonna look up to you and be mad at how small they feel, or be inspired of where you're at, and they're gonna want to follow you. They want to go climb the mountain with you and enjoy the view and enjoy the process. So yeah, like I watch all the birds and shit, like they're just programmed. They all do the same thing. Like there's hundreds of birds around me, they all do the same fucking thing. So don't be a little birdie. Alright, so there's predestinations for you and where you're at, what your strengths are, what things that you are good at, what things you totally enjoy doing. And so yeah, when you go with, after figuring this out and continually exploring and delving into your predispositions and your predestinations, you're fighting against your past environment, your nurture, and you have an obligation to those things. Whatever you might be, but you're always going to be fighting against the level of coding, right? So your coding has been impacted by trauma, suffering, pain, loss, as well as all the positive things. So how I would bring this in a way full circle is if you're really following your destiny, right? If you're really following what's healthy for you, what gives you life, what lifts you up, what inspires you, what strengthens you, but also what challenges you, what leads to a level of resistance. Because it's really just pushing up against that resistance and breaking through that illusory parts. So, like right now, me like doing this with other people being around, there's a level of like iffiness, there's a level of resistance, but I know this is something that I love doing, and I'm gonna love the whole process before this goes public, right? So just being very, very deliberate, being very, very conscious of your calling, your vocation. Because if you don't pursue all this sort of stuff, you don't fight through all this sort of shit, you don't push forward where you should be, and you know deep in your soul, deep in your gut, even your consciousness, right? Then you'll just fall into the trap of complacency, where you're not pushing yourself, you're not creating, you're not developing, right? And you'll just be, I said it before, like, you'll just be at a level, you'll be a mediocre motherfucker, right? So, yeah. So, and then if you're, it's a lot of times you're gonna have to exert an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of effort, to fight the coding that's been implanted in you, the coding that's been impressed upon you, the coding that's been exerted onto you, that's been forced onto you through other low frequency things, whether they're unseen or they are not, right? Whether they're people, whether they're environments, whether they're past memories. There's a dead toad right there. That's crazy. I haven't seen a toad in a long time. We'll have to look up what that means. But you gotta push against, right? Because if you kowtow, if you surrender to, if you submit to, the pressures of the matrix, or whatever you want to say, I'm just using that terminology, okay, then your destiny is going to be determined. Your fate is going to be determined. Your future is going to be determined by something that's outside of your control. A bunch of shit that's outside of your control. So create your own fucking reality. So you gotta be after what's distinguished. Okay? When we look at the etymology of the word distinguished, it means separate. Separate from others that are similar or contiguous. Better than known in others in the same class. Maybe even famous or celebrated, right? So what I respect in another person, and because it's what I respect in myself, is being distinguished. I use the example that like kids want to be like MLB players or like NBA players, but just because their parents aren't able to, their coaches aren't at that level, and thus not able to get them to that level, they end up 10 years down the road being like, yo, I just want to be an engineer. But it's like, if they had people around them that were, so that's what I'm talking about. In our society, it's warfare to a degree. So you have to be a warrior. You have to be able to fight. You have to be able to claw. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to stick, like kids are fucking resolute. They're fucking tenacious. But eventually they get to a point where it's like in puberty and then like into high school and stuff, go into adulting, the whole mindset shifts, the whole attitude shifts. You know, it's a very critical point. So we have to be super, super careful on that element that is coming from people who are supposed to care for us, who are hired to care for us, who are our parents, who created us. So as adults, if that's present for children, which are the most vulnerable, impressionable, and innocent, what's happening with adults? What kind of forces are coming at you from that standpoint, right? So like, it's nearly, I think for a lot of people, it's nearly impossible because they don't do it. The majority of people don't do it. They're not distinguished. They're blending in, or they're being distinguished by, in my opinion, the reason I'm distinguished is because I'm a fucking creative god. I'm a creative fucking genius. I'm a distinguished artist. And I have multiple platforms. I have multiple mediums. I have multiple ways of expressing. You know, it's a lifestyle for me. It's a real lifestyle. So I think one of the most insidious and devastating things is this. Is fucking this. What I'm talking about. So make sure that you are, how you're being influenced, what you're consuming. Like, I don't consume a lot unless I'm creating. Like, I don't watch TV, I don't watch Netflix. I listen to music, podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube, informational shit, educational shit, creating my own content like this. So I'm very aware of my inner workings, myself, my psyche, myself as a whole, myselves, right? I fast. The majority of people don't fucking fast. They consume way too much. That's the problem with, when you know someone's part of the matrix, it's when they're just consuming like stupidly, like just dumb shit, just like consuming way too much, like consume to create, and then create to create, and then continue to fucking do that, right? Like Nietzsche talks about this thing in the beginning of Zarathustra, where it's like there's a lion, there's a camel, there's a lion, there's a child. And the fucking camel, like the majority of fucking people are goddamn camels. They just, they screen suck, they eat shitty foods, and they have like big houses and shit. And they have cars, or they have multiple cars, like fucking that, right? So, it's like, it's better to be lighter. It's better to be lighter, because then you're like a light, and you're bright, and you are all right. So, the big indicative element, factor of someone who's part of the matrix is how they carry themselves, so the energy they emit. So if it's low frequency, like negative, just look at the frequency scale, right? Then, I mean, that's clear, because the body is everything. What the body consumes is evident to all. What the mind consumes is evident to oneself completely, and thus all to when people, in more subtle ways but also more direct ways, when people speak and have conversations and who they hang around with, just, you know, right? So so what is this? So if you notice that someone's unhealthy in any aspect, right? If someone's unhealthy to, like, just clearly, like, just in any way, right? Like you just have to be attuned to and intuit and be aware and be open and be awake, and like you can just tell, like we shouldn't have like fucking like 70-year-olds like super unhealthy. Like, you should be very unhealthy. You have your whole life to figure that shit out. You have 50 years to figure that shit out. So like, we should have 70, 80-year-olds. We should have 30-year-olds being completely unhealthy. But what I'm saying is that people who are unhealthy versus people who are healthy, which is in the minority, people who are unhealthy are clearly in the matrix, because you can tell that they're on a certain program where it's like, okay, bro, how do you get like to be like 300 pounds? So, yes. So that's what I'm saying. Right here, consumption. Wasting of the body by disease, wasting disease, progressive emaciation. So why would you want to consume? Why would you want to consume so much? Why would you want to be unattractive? Why would you want to be so unhealthy? Why would you want to treat yourself that way? So we're living in a literal epidemic, bro, of just consumer culture. Like, the fuck are we doing? So if everyone is fucking sick around me, what does that mean for me, right? Like, how do I not get infected? How do I stay clean? How do I not get contaminated? How do I not get fucking filth all over me? How do I not get the virus of the consumptive culture of the Western world or the globalized world? You know what I mean? Like, anyone who I see just is like bored and they're just like scrolling on TikTok with just bullshit shit. Nothing against TikTok, because you can actually curate through the coding in there, through the algorithm, to actually have helpful educational things that are improving you, so you're not consuming and you're actually curating your consumption. But it's not even consumption based on that definition, right? So that's the real trouble, right? Because how do you stay pure? How do you not get toxic from what's around you? Well, you have to wear a mask. And that's a whole nother fucking rabbit hole. And how do you know when a culture, which is now globalized, is sick? When they're not producing anything great. I mean, there are people out there, but I'm talking about a very small minutia of great human achievements that are occurring from people. Like it's the exception. The rule is, and maybe that's what makes a culture what it is, and makes the world what it is that the top percent, top 1%, the top 0.5%, you know, of doing great fucking things, they need an audience. So maybe it's just part of the fucking programming, right? Maybe it's just part of the coding, right? Maybe it's just part of the matrix, right? Maybe it's just part of the simulation, right? So, what are you gonna do? But for me, the biggest thing I can do is stay clean. You know? That's the biggest fucking thing.